This video is going to show exactly how you go about deploying units. And doing so in a way that really benefits the amount of money you've got and really propelling yourself towards victory. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a map I personally customized and created. The map is called South America. So as you look, you've got what is essentially South America. This is a map you can download. If you want to reach out to me and message me to do so, you can. I'll leave my friend code in the link in the description below. But essentially what this is we've got South America. Northwest side, we've got Central America. On the south, east side, you've got the Falkland Islands. You've got the Galapagos Islands in the northwest. You've got basically essentially Colombia and Venezuela on top as orange star. And as blue moon, you've got at the bottom essentially Argentina and Chile. I'm going to put this onto Fog of War so you can kind of see what that looks like in Fog of War. And I can show some things. I'm going to go ahead and CPU will make as... Well, go ahead and just use the classic Andy versus Olaf. I will be orange star, and I can kind of show you how this is going to look. We'll put on some Fog of War just to show some nuance. We'll make the weather random. Going to show some nuance with that if there is any random changes, but otherwise we'll keep everything the same. This is going to be playing Fog of War, so I can kind of show you what units are useful in Fog of War situations and how to use them in relation to the terrain. I start out with 7,000 right now, so what we've got is each side is 2 bases. Each side has an airport, and each side has 2 ports as well. Big thing in any Advanced Wars game is trying to capture the middle and having control over that. So in this case, this is the Amazon River and the Amazon Rainforest. That is really where we're going to be fighting a lot of our battles. So one thing I want to start out with any kind of map is you want to start out building infantry. So we'll go ahead and build 2 infantry here. One thing I could even build is a transport copter. In theory, if I wanted to say if this was a base, I could try to capture it early. But in this case, probably not necessary to build a transport copter. On some maps, that may be a good idea. But I'm going to go ahead and enter. And the reason why you want to build infantry early is you want to start capturing properties in a deployed unit situation. In a previous video I just did, it was a matter of you could go and, but at this point you basically move and go and start capturing cities. Keep in mind, in this situation I only have 2 bases. In the situation where you may have more than 2 bases, if you have like 3 bases, if you have more airports and things like that, you may want to make use of making more infantry generally. On this kind of map right now, it's fairly open, so I think I want to build a tank. The question is, where do I want to build the other infantry? The question is, the answer is probably it doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to go ahead and build an infantry. And with the idea of trying to capture the middle first, but I also want to capture this later, I'm going to build a tank. Now think of tanks, if you look at Fog of War, it has 6 move and it has 3 vision. So it's going to deliver a lot of the vision, even if you do not have a recon, which recon's 5 visions are excellent. Certainly a helpful thing. We go into turn 3. I can go ahead and, of course, capture things as I can. The other thing you can always do is keep moving and try to capture things that are close to the middle. That is always a possibility. If I wanted to move here, I could do so and try to capture this city. The question is whether or not that's going to be in a situation where I don't know what's there right now. Right? But I'm going to go ahead and just try to inch a little closer, try to capture that one. I'm going to move my tank up as well. question becomes, which route do I take? There's this route, and then there's this route. And there's not really a right answer on this map right now. But I'm going to move this infantry closer to this, and then the next one I will probably have building from one of the two bases, moving it here to capture that city. Again, central location, central location. Now the road extends to the east, and I did it that way because really there aren't a lot of roads going through the rainforest itself. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think I will have it track along the infantry so that if there are any units over here, I can use the tank to attack it. Tanks are kind of the Swiss Army knife of land battle. It is just usually a good idea to have one. What I can do now is I have a choice here. Do I want to build an artillery? Do I want to defend? Do I want to build potentially a battlecopter? I think a battlecopter could be pretty useful here because of the rainforest. So I may want to use one so that I can traverse the Amazon. I'm just going to build infantry. It's always good in these bases to always be building something on every turn, even if they're infantry. Doesn't sound like there's anything coming that way. I think I heard, a little bit of a transport copter or something. I'm going to keep moving this down with the idea of hopefully capturing this city next. In the meantime, I'm going to capture this city. Now, this is Fog of War. You can hide units in forest. So, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and put that in forest, but I'm going to, for now, I'm going to move one towards this neutral city, because now this is closer than some of the other cities I could be trying to capture. I'm going to try to capture this one, and I'm going to go ahead and move this other one down. So before I decide where I want to move this tank, I'm going to move this battlecopter first. Battlecopter also has Vision 3, also has Move 6, but because it's an airplane, it can just fly over anything, and it's not going to cause any issue. Now the question is, where do you put this plane, right? What is the safest spot to put the plane? Again, not knowing where anything is, and knowing that there's rainforest in this area, it's probably a little safer to put it here, just because it slows down movement. So if you go and do a ZR on a particular tile, you can see the movement cost for a particular unit. Airplanes can just fly over. Look at the tires. Tires really slow down. Tread really slows down on forest tiles. Tires are, tanks. Well, recons and whatnot. And tread, we're talking like tanks. I'm going to go ahead and move this down, but with an eye on having it quite close to the road, but also in forest, so no one can see it. And then what am I going to build next? I don't even have any idea what's down here. They could be building planes for all I know. And it sounded like they might have a plane, but I have a transport. I have a battlecopter here. I'm just going to go ahead and build 2 infantry. Chances are, artillery I don't really need at this point because there just aren't a lot of units on here. If both sides had 3 bases, I probably would build an artillery. But as it stands, I'm just going to build direct units and kind of see where that goes. And in the meantime, again, always be building 2 things. Do I need an APC? Maybe not, because I'm able to get my units over relatively soon. It only takes me a few turns to get to the middle of the map. Because this is a custom map that was built for 300 tiles. That means basically I can share this map with anyone if you are interested in downloading it. I can share this with you with a friend code transfer. I'm going to go ahead and build 2 infantry. Always be building something out of bases. Airports, ports, not necessarily, because those things are more expensive, but you can always at least build infantry. You do have a transport copter. They move an infantry up. Important things first, always start capturing. Do not forget to capture and make sure you're getting more resources for future turns. And now I have 10. I don't know exactly how much blue has. Now the tricky thing, of course, is moving stuff down, not knowing if there's a battlecopter, not knowing if there's an anti-aircraft. How do we go about starting to do that? One thing you could always do is, one, you can move an infantry over on mountain so then suddenly you get a view of everything around. So that's not really something I'm going to do right now because I want to capture the city. I'm going to go and capture the city. There's still vision of 2 for infantry, so I can see that they're trying to capture this city. Other infantry, I'm going to keep moving down, getting it closer to the enemy. And then there's a question of how you want to attack, right? Because of the forest tiles, if I were to attack, for example, this would not kill the infantry. It does 67% of the 100% I would need. So if I wanted to, say, hide this tank for the next turn, I would really want to use 2 units attacking it so that it remains hidden. I'm going to go ahead and actually do that. I'm going to use the battle copter in this spot. And now put the other one here because it's a little bit closer than it would have been on here to wipe out the infantry. Oh, and there is apparently a Recon there. So that's the thing, you in forest you just cannot see, and there is a Recon. And unless you're using Sonya and Enhanced Vision, you're not going to be able to see through these forests unless you put something next to it. So moving ahead now, what do we got? We know there's a Recon. Tanks and battlecopters can take out the Recon. Infantry can take out infantry. I might want to get an anti-air out there just because of the transport copter, so I'm going to actually put out this just in case they put out any other air units. And the battlecopter gets hit the next turn by like another battlecopter. The Recon comes out and attacks. And they do have an anti-air, long and behold. Again, first thing, start by capturing. Do not forget to capture any cities you've got. In the meantime, keep moving things down. Now the challenge here is, what do I attack, right? There's a Recon, there's a bunch of infantry, APCs, there's infantry capturing the base. The anti-air is the most expensive weapon that they have, and most importantly, it could damage my battlecopter. So on this turn, I really want to make sure I attack the anti-air first with my tank. Anti-airs are worth 8,000, so they actually are worth a lot as well. And then there's a question of whether or not you want to use a battlecopter to attack an anti-air when the anti-air has the advantage. Normally that's a bad idea, but given that it's down to 5 health and battlecopter attacks first, that may not be a bad idea to just silence really the anti-air, get it down to about 2 health. In the meantime, what do we do next? This infantry has been hurt. I'm going to move my anti-air down. And then this is a matter of what is the quickest way down. Crossing the river here is actually slightly faster, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then it's a matter of whether or not I want to bother trying to continue to capture here or not, knowing that the Recon's probably going to take it out. Well, we don't really know for sure, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue capturing. Use this infantry to finish off this one. The other possibility would have been trying to attack this infantry, but the problem is that infantry is on a city, so it's going to heal on the next turn and then win the upper hand anyway. Keep moving infantry down. Again, not knowing what you've got to plan ahead, right? You don't know if there are any aircraft. There could be naval units, and there certainly are ports on both sides, but sea units are kind of expensive, and air units tend to get the upper hand on sea units anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And generally, you want to be creating units that are cheaper unless they build a better unit. What I mean by that is usually it's good to build tanks, anti-aircraft, artillery, and battlecopters. Those are kind of your standard fare units. They cost 6,000, 9,000. They're generally pretty good. You just have to make sure that, you know, they get a little closer and they don't get outgunned. For example, battlecopters can get outgunned by fighters. Fighters and bombers are just expensive, so you don't want to build too many of them if you can avoid it. Same thing with sea units. 12,000 to 12,000, 18,000, 20,000, 28,000. Usually best when there's a lot of sea. There's not as much sea on this level. And artillery can be useful, assuming you have enough units already on the playing field to defend it. So right now I have a bunch of infantry to defend. I can build an artillery. I can build more than one artillery. Or I can build a tank. Anti-airs are just good if you want to try to take out fighters, bombers, infantry, mechs. Tanks can take care of most things except for medium tanks. And artillery, I mean, are still an indirect unit. They can still do a lot of damage, even if they don't have the range of a rocket. So the rocket has a range of, it says 3 to 5 there, artillery 2 to 3, but artillery can usually do this most of the same kind of stuff as a rocket, unless you're in a position where there's just tons of units, and the rocket is the only thing that can reach that distance, which is usually not the case. So in this situation, I'm going to build a tank, and I'll build artillery for demonstration purposes. I built the artillery here instead of here because the artillery can go down this way and get closer to the battlefield and not have to go through this wood tile, which would delay the artillery getting down. So the Recon is going to go ahead and wipe out my infantry. So Olaf is moving up. Does use the infantry against my infantry in a way that I expected. And then Olaf is just going to go ahead and take out that infantry. So I've lost vision of that tile, but chances are I think I still have control over that tile. One thing you can always do for vision is put an infantry up on a mountain like this. You'd see a lot. In fact, this may be a good idea considering this infantry can't really attack a lot of things anyway. I'm going to put it up here, and then it suddenly has the vision of not 2, but 5. So now I see that, okay, the Recon is over here now, there's infantry, there's nothing else around. Again, remember, I gotta capture these first. Otherwise, keep moving units down. And the question becomes how to best use these units in a way that benefits what you've got. So, the biggest enemy you've got is the Recon, but the problem is the anti-air you should really take out this turn because it's going to get 2 health increase being on the city on the next turn. So the question becomes, do you want to use a battle copter to wipe it out? 18% probably going to wipe it out, or use a tank which is a little stronger. Given that a battle copter is enough, and it can really only do 39% damage to anything else, the battle copter is actually best fit to take out this and actually go down this way. Here, and I'm kind of noticing there's not a lot now. I think I've taken out a lot of their units. Now the question becomes, how do I attack? Anti-air are usually good against infantry, but the more expensive unit is the 4000 G Recon, so I'm going to use it to attack directly. And then the more dangerous unit here is actually the 9 health infantry that is on a city, which has better defense, and the fact that it has the self-healing. I'm going to go ahead and attack that first with the tank first, because a tank is less likely to take chip damage from the infantry, and then I'll use the remaining infantry to I could attack that again, or I could actually attack the other unit. In this situation, probably actually better attack the full health unit, and so they're both weakened and they both can't do a lot of damage to any of my units. Meanwhile, let's bring the artillery down. Haven't really used it that much yet. Same thing with the tank. And then we're looking at what is essentially not a lot of stuff now. Artillery may not even be that needed at this point because it's only a 2 base rather than a 3 base map, which would have more units on the field. So I am going to build another tank. Or I could build another battle copter if I wanted to just fly over everything. And that's going to be a little bit of a judgment call. I mean, either is fine. The battle copter can move a little further. And so for that reason, I will actually build a battle copter. but a tank would have been fine too. Or an artillery if I had a little bit more of a drawn-out battle in the middle and had enough infantry, you know, and whatnot in front of it to defend it. They do pull out a tank and continue attacking, but kind of seeing that they have not as many things remaining. Again, I have 14,000. Would I save up for a medium tank? No, not worth it. It's better to have 2 tanks move as far and basically do more damage than build a stronger tank, unless there was actually a medium tank. Unless there was a fighter. Then, if there was a fighter, I might want to build my own fighter. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep moving units down. Here we've got an interesting situation. Artillery can attack 2 different targets. But the infantry can also wipe them out, so how do I want to play this? On here, I think I want to keep capture. Artillery are, in this case, normally would be best fired at this one, but this is the other option. I'm going to go ahead and fire on this infantry so that I can actually move one infantry a little further next turn and have this other one captured. The 2 health infantry is really not a threat at all. I'm not really worried about it doing damage to anything. And then there is then a question of what do I do with these other units. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the battle copter versus the tank first, because this tank has been weakened, and even if it wasn't weakened, the one issue is that tanks can fire back and do more counter-attack damage to the tank. So, go ahead and use the battle copter. Which may have not been a good choice, because now I see an anti-air. But, having opened up this route, I can use an anti-air to attack their anti-air, or just even the block. So then, they would have to go around and not be able to attack my battle copter. I'm just going to go ahead and attack. So I'm going to use the anti-air to attack their anti-air. Their anti-air is going to heal on the next turn, so they're going to be able to do counterattack damage. But that's where it is useful to still have tanks and an artillery to potentially take out the anti-air on a later turn. I'm going to move this infantry. I want this tank to attack this tank from... I'm going to move this infantry down, which allows me to move my infantry over there, and then my tank can move down here to finish off the Recon. Again, this infantry doesn't really matter. I'm just going to keep moving it. And then this one, so the question of where do you attack from? You can attack the tank. Now you can see the plane has a defensive 1, the road has a defensive 0, and the wood has a defensive 2, meaning that if there's a counterattack after my tank can't finish off that tank, it's going to be better defended from the forest tile, so I'm going to attack from the forest tile. Keep moving my remaining units down. And knowing that there's an anti-air, and while I still have another tank, I probably want to build another tank. I'm going to go ahead and build another tank. Build another infantry, because always build a unit when you're not building anything else, and you can keep moving your units down. The anti-air is a little weakened, but I have preserved the more important unit of my battle copter, which can still be used against other units. Interesting situation where the Blue Moon, Olaf has dropped a mech on the mountain. Mechs can be dangerous on mountains, so you gotta be careful, because he can even wipe out tanks. Unfortunately, the artillery is within range to attack the mech, so I'm going to go ahead and use it that way. In the meantime, we've got, some healing going on down here. With this infantry, what I'd like to do here is use the 4, which is a lower level tank, to beat the 1, because a lot of this game is using proportional force. And you can use this and you can have it do 53% damage about what? When you can just do 21% damage with a weaker unit. I'm gonna wipe out the unit, and then I can then bring my infantry down to start capturing this city in Brazil. Again, remember to capture 2 more, and now I suddenly have 14 properties, which means I could potentially even build 2 tanks every turn. Now the thing of in-fight mech battles is if you have infantry within range, you generally want to use infantry rather than a tank. These infantry are cheaper, and they're just more cost-effective against mechs. So I'm going to go ahead and use a more cost-effective unit to weaken the mech on the mountain. Otherwise, still be moving my tank and other things down. But this infantry can wipe that out. Now the key thing to note here is I've still got this dangerous anti-air. A tank's going to win the head-to-head against an anti-air. Generally, it's not going to be as effective in this situation because the anti-air has defense on a base, but still pretty good situation there. Meanwhile, let's have the anti-air continue to chip away at the other anti-air. It's going to lose, but at least it weakens it, so then I can now use this to attack their battle copter. And at least do some damage before it starts firing on me. Now, given the situation here, I want to move my battle copter down. But if I move it 2 squares down, I will still be in range to attack their battle copter. So I can still attack this transport copter and basically destroy it here and still be within range. Always be checking your range. You can always check by pressing down B on a particular unit, and you can either use a D-pad or a control stick to move around, and you can still see the rest of the map while showing the range. Go ahead and finish off the mech, who's dangerous, but we had enough units around. In the meantime, start capturing other cities. That too help infantry is just not worth worrying about. Keep moving that down. Given the anti-air situation, I could build another anti-air, but it's going to take a little while to arrive, so I think what I'm probably going to do is just build another battle copter, which, again, with low movement costs, can just fly over everything, and including forests and mountains that are in the way. And in the meantime, I've got 2 tanks, so that can take out anti-airs. This thing the mech can potentially be dangerous in attacking tanks. And if this gets moved, for example, they can use the mech to do serious damage to the tank. So that's something I got to consider. And I may only have 1 full tank left. So how I'm going to manage this is I'm going to build a tank, I'll build a battle copter, and I'll build an infantry. That way I have coverage in the air and on land.
Let the winds of war bring snow. Blizzard!
So, as expected, I'm getting close to the enemy base. They're going to fight back, and they push back quite a bit. The mech attacking the tank, the anti-air attacking the anti-air, and they took down my plane, and they used the CO power to do it. Which does make things a little more difficult, right? Again, first, finish capturing cities. At this point, I've captured the entire middle part, which were neutral bases. So, blue doesn't have very much left. Keep that in mind in terms of what they could build. 1, 2, 3 cities, plus HQ, plus 2 bases, an airport, and 2 ports. So they have like 9,000 G every turn at this point. But my units are a little stuck. I can't really do a whole lot on this turn. What I could do is I could heal units, I could retreat, that sort of thing. And given the mechs are in the way, and I don't really have a lot of units to take out these mechs, in terms of like, you know, abundance of anti-air tanks, infantry, whatever, I gotta retreat. So I'm gonna go ahead and retreat my infantry. And there's a concept here that's worth noting, and it's called walling. I'm trying to move units, they're just not going to move, so therefore not really worth using my CO power on a turn I can't really move my units. So you can see that I am putting my infantry in front. They're cannon fodder. That way they don't get damaged as easily, and I can wait for the AI to come and attack. So I'm putting my battlecopter behind infantry. The battlecopter can't attack it head on. I'm going to do the same thing on this side so that the battlecopter can't attack head on this side either. In fact, the tank is probably so weak at this point, I might as well combine it into 7, because 3 and 4 is probably not going to take out any useful anti-air. Well, otherwise keep moving my units down, but this is kind of, I'm just grounded for a turn. In the meantime, let's see what we have. We have 2 battlecopters, 2 tanks, or 3 tanks, an artillery which is still making its way over. Artillery would be a little more useful if we were still kind of battling in the middle with all these units. But because I'm trying to advance, generally when you're trying to advance, you want to build more direct units. When you're defending, if you're staying back, you probably want to build more mechs, you want to probably build more artillery, because those are going to be your more cost-effective defensive units. But on the offensive, I'm just going to keep attacking. Now the question becomes whether I build another battlecopter or another tank. Given that they only have 1 anti-air, they could build a second, potentially. It can be useful to have more tanks than battlecopters. But in this instance, it's really just a close call. I'm just going to go ahead and build another tank. And of course, the obligatory extra infantry. The battlecopter does attack the infantry cannon fodder at the beginning. The anti-air is not going to go up and attack any of my tanks or anything like that because of I had combined them, so that wouldn't be attacked. So now we're in a situation where we do have artillery that can attack. I do have a weakened unit that is a 7. And then the question becomes, do I want to use this power when I only have 1 damage unit? With hyper repair, usually I probably want to attack with this battlecopter first. Potentially. Although it's going to just damage it. So the thing with CO powers you've got to be aware of is, so this is style 1, this is the advanced 1 version. 2 health, restores 2 HP, gains plus 10, which is pretty common, to firepower and defense. So firepower is the initial attack by your unit, or whoever unit is attacking. Defense is the flip side. So for example, before a power, it does 65 damage, right? Now let's see what happens
I'm all ripped up
when I use the CO power.
Hyper repair.
Plus 10 firepower, see, okay? Look at what that is. Now it went up from 65 to 71. That's your plus 10 firepower. So it can be useful in terms of trying to beat out a unit. Like now I can take out the anti-air with ease from artillery. And again, artillery you want to, keep behind infantry, tanks, battlecopters, that sort of thing. Artillery, the artillery unit is the best cost-effective indirect unit in the game. Kind of comparable in some respects to mechs if you have like Sammy or some kind of infantry defense. But basically honestly, the units you want to build the most of probably in the game, infantry, mechs. Mechs are kind of a unique situation with defense, but infantry, mechs, or not mechs, infantry, artillery, tanks, battle copters, anti-air are probably your go-to units in most situations. Okay, so having done that, I'm going to keep moving my infantry forward. Other things, use my battle copter to wipe out their battle copter. Keeping in mind the extra firepower, I can try to take out this. I can try to attack this mech. They built another battle copter, which is another good reason to use battle copters, which are a quick way for me to advance on the enemy, because they have movement of 6, and they can fly over anything. Anti-airs do have that too, but the problem for them is they can't advance as far. So, options here. Tank, which direction do you attack a recon from? The reason why I'm going to attack from this side, so they're both roads, so they don't have extra cover. But what I can do is I can attack from this side, so that if the battle copter wants to attack, well, that's okay, because I'm going to have an infantry walling, blocking the tank from being... Actually, that didn't really matter in this situation, necessarily, because I couldn't move an infantry here, but if I could, this would be kind of a better spot. In the meantime, let's go and attack the mech from 2 sides. Infantry against mech on mounts is not going to go very well, but I have 2 units to surround it with, so it's going to mostly take this mech down almost all the way. Still want to move my other tanks down and my other units down. Keep doing that. Remember to charge your battery on your switch when you play. But, again, keep moving tanks down. In this case, I'm moving my tank down before my infantry, because I want to get down as quickly as possible, and I don't want the infantry I'm building to block my tank's way. So you may notice we're kind of in an interesting situation. What is an interesting situation? I have 22,800 bucks. That's more money than I can spend. So notice now I can finally afford a cruiser, but why? Given that the map is mostly not sea, why would I build one? Subs, landers, if I wanted to take out some sea unit, then, this is the time to start. Only now would I start building these. Same thing with fighters and bombers. If I really wanted to do that, this is finally the time to do it. Finally time to consider doing that. But keeping in mind, they haven't built anything really more expensive than a 9,000G B-copter. I'm going to go ahead and still keep building B-copters. I'm going to go ahead and still keep building, tanks and infantry. As you kind of close in on the finish line in a battle, that's usually often going to be the case in a versus match. Then you start building the heavy firepower units like fighters and bombers. You have a lot of money. You're trying to finish off your opponent. So then your medium tanks, your battlecopters, your bombers, those sorts of things kind of come into play a little more. First thing, let's start capturing the enemy bases. Let's get the fort. Let's get the base. They weaken one of my battlecopters, but I have the other one. If I had an anti-air, I would use the anti-air to attack the battlecopter first, but because I built battlecopters that are speedier, I don't need to do it that way. The scary thing right now is really this map on top of the map. It's going to do a lot of damage. Fairly concerning. You can mostly avoid it by, again, using cheaper units to try to take it out using infantry, which is really what I'm going to be trying to do. In the meantime, let's try to take out this APC on top of the HQ so that I actually have a chance to capture it. The AI in this version of the game is pretty good at trying to put something on the HQ so you don't so it's actually defended. Bigger concern now, once I've seen this anti-air, is I really need to watch out for it. and I need to start damaging it. Tanks do pretty well against anti-air in a head-to-head, so I'm going to start by attacking it, which will drop it from 10 to 6 health, and then it'll go back up to 8 after healing, but at least it'll be weakened. And in the meantime, what we're going to do here is start attacking this mech. I can move this infantry down and wipe out this mech. The reason I can do that is now it blocks off the anti-air from getting through. I can even use this battle copter to attack from this side. Now it can't get through. You'd have to take out this would have to take out the infantry, or this would have to take out, you know, there's just, it's much better defended, especially if I'm bringing artillery down to block the battle copter on this side. But otherwise, I'm just moving my units down. I use this tank to finish off the battle copter, and right now I'm just trying to put pressure. I'm going to keep infantry, keep attacking. I have more units than they do. Keep pressuring, keep attacking. I don't have to be as cautious on the offensive because I just have way more units by virtue of always building a unit from every base I have. Keep moving other units down. Question becomes, at what point do you start building things like bombers? You could start building bombers pretty much at this point. They move an extra square. The battle copter is moving one fewer square and still doing damage just by anything but anti-airs and like medium tanks. I'm just going to keep going with it. I've got my artillery. Artillery is going to do the damage to the anti-airs. I've got 5 tanks now. So why not? Keep building battle copters, keep building another infantry, keep building a tank. The infantry, if they ever get to the battlefield, can serve as this kind of thing you're seeing here, where it's blocking off more expensive, stronger units for another turn, so then I can unleash them the next turn. Anti-air does go for one of the infantry, does wipe it out, but can't get to my more expensive battle copters and stronger battle copters. They're building more and more anti-airs, which makes total sense, given that I have battle coppers up, and anti-airs still do pretty good damage against anything other than tanks on this current map. I'm going to capture a base, I'm going to capture a port, and at this point, let's start trying to take out these anti-aircraft. I'm seeing that there's really not a whole lot left here. Tanks against anti-airs is usually a good matchup. You definitely don't want to use anything else. I can use the artillery to weaken the anti-air here, which at 3 health would make it vulnerable even to attacks by battle copters. Now, looking at range first, this is the only thing I can attack the battle copter is this mech, so I want to use this first before I use other units, because other units can attack further. I want to use the unit that's further away to attack. In the meantime, I can go and use infantry to wipe out this infantry, which will open up a route for me to attack both the anti-air and both anti-airs and the APC. Now, given that this is a 3 and a 1, they're going to be pretty easy to beat, even with battle copters. So I'm going to actually use this one to start attacking the APC. I can bring this one down, and then I'll be able to attack the APC like this, potentially. The question is, if you're trying to beat this, and you know, this is one of those maps you're doing on War Room or you know, campaign mode, you're trying to beat in the just number of days as possible. You know, you look and see, you're trying not to lose too many units for technique points. You want to race as fast as you can, so these kind of calculations really end up mattering. Like, how much do you need to take out a unit? 22%? Probably not going to happen. Although you probably use both units combined to take it, but then you won't be able to take every unit. So the question becomes, how do you strategize this? This tank probably is best used to actually just go and wipe out this anti-air. And then it also, you're with the tank over the airport, they can't build out of that either. If I want to do this, I can block off, say, the port, and then suddenly they can't build anything from the port, and everything has either been captured or blocked, and they can't do anything with it. In this case, the anti-air is going to live, because I'm just going to go after the APC. Well, maybe I can take it out on this turn. You see that? So I will give it a try, but at the end of every time I play through any kind of campaign or war room map, you'll kind of see me do stuff like this, and basically build units on the very last turn. The reason why I do that, even if I'm not using it for anything, is that it helps with technique points. Technique points in campaign and war room maps are depending on how, basically a percentage of units that's are lost compared to units deployed total. I would do stuff like this in order to make sure I have enough points. So if, say, I was on track to get like 95 technique points, maybe I end up having 98. Or maybe it gets me all the way to 100 because I've deployed enough total units. These technique points is based on losing threshold number of units, not having too many lost over the course of building enough total units. So if I build enough total units, that is going to increase my technique score. Speed, if I want to go for speed, this is like the move I obviously try to do. And with power, you're trying to get a certain percentage of number of units killed on every turn. So even if I say I was trying to capture the HQ on this turn, I will usually try to, even though I can capture it on that turn, I will try to do some damage to kill off some units on that final turn before I actually do the capture. In this case, this probably is going to work. Looks like I'm not able to take it down, but if I was able to take it down, that would have been amazing. In this situation, if this were an actual campaign or war room map, this anti-air basically goes up to 3 health and then kills my battle copter, so that's kind of the risk you would take in that situation. But that's essentially how you would deploy units, how you would utilize units in a way
Can you
to
withstand the cold?
take advantage of the money you have
Blizzard!
in a cost-effective manner, using infantry walls to defend your artillery and more expensive units. And really how you would ultimately go about deploying units. It looks like this would have worked anyway because for a complete finish, because it looks like there's actually another lander. There's a lander, there is a recon, so in that case I wouldn't have beaten everything, but it's Fog of War, you don't always know that. So this is actually going to go on for a few more turns so I can actually demonstrate. So with HQ capture, you generally want to surround your unit so it doesn't get damaged by anything else. Meanwhile, you're trying to just damage everything around it that can potentially attack the unit that is trying to do HQ capture. And again, using lower HP units to try to do the damage to wrap up, to destroy units. If you use a 7 instead of 9, why not use the 7? In the meantime, you want to blockade these bases around so that no one is actually, capturing anything or building anything out of those areas. In this situation, I am just going to move these units up, try to take out the lander as much as I can. And endgame, this is where, for example, if you build a bomber, that can be useful for taking out the remaining naval units, like landers. Battle copters are not really the choice of unit to take out landers and ships, generally. With ships, you generally do want to use for battleships, and particularly cruisers and whatnot. You want to use stronger units that can do more damage. In this case, I kind of screwed up some units and didn't cover this one up, so they're going to end up building another unit. This can actually be a benefit in certain situations, leaving it open like that. If you think that can assist you with an HQ capture situation where this is like the front base, and then in the back there's the HQ, and you're going for the HQ, or you want them to build units closer that you can immediately take out anyway. See, I have all these tanks around. I think that's a pretty safe situation. Plus, I can always, now that it is the endgame, keep in mind 20,000. I can build a rocket here, and then the rocket can fire on anything that is on that base. So you can start building some real expensive units at the very end to finish, you know, for that extra range, for that extra power at the end, because you can actually afford to do it. But, you know, sometimes I'll just go ahead and move units like this, even though it doesn't really matter. And in the event of, you know, I'm trying to get a better score, I just keep building units like this. Every turn, I keep doing that. In this situation, I don't know where the lander went. I legitimately have no idea where it went. But, you know, on that last turn, I generally go and I'm like, I'm going to try to see if I can, you know, do more damage to it. Looks like they've gone ahead and actually taken the Falkland Islands, so I'm not going to be able to wrap it up in that way. But on a final turn, when I know I'm going to capture the HQ, I will always just build more units like this. Build the cheapest units possible so I can build more units. Whatever I do, so then I can get more of those total units for technique points. But then, you know, I would still go and damage the remaining units. Try to take out as much as I can to ensure power points. Even do stuff like that to build more units. And then ultimately finish with a capture HQ. I'm gonna get my score, and it's usually gonna be an S rank in that kind of situation. Or even a 300-point S rank. So this is the map South America. If you guys are interested in any way in getting a, you know, a version of this, feel free to contact me for my friend code, or I mean, just really just add me. I'm gonna go ahead and show my friend code at this moment. My friend code is SW298948371665. I've even created another map here, which I can at least show. This is a map of the Korean War, which I may alter very slightly to move the HQs up closer so they end a little quicker, but with Orange Star being North Korea, Blue Moon being South Korea. This is another kind of, I'm just going to show the map.
Excellent choice.
In this video. If you have interest in either of them, feel free to add me in my friend code and send me a message, and I can kind of make that happen. This is also playable online as a custom map, but you've got, you know, North Korea with various units to start out, the demarcation line here. South Korea, you've also got Manchuria, which is part of China, as part of the top of the map. But those are the tips. Thanks for watching. Hope these tips and tricks are helpful for when you're deploying units in a cost-effective way to win your matches.